Hey YouTube, Joe Boy here. So today I want to talk about just the abysmal situation that is going on in Whole Cake Island right now. There is literally right now no hope. And I also want to talk about the potential defeat of Big Mom in Whole Cake Island. And so I have a habit of talking about extremely controversial things on my channel because balls of steel. But in this particular case, I want to talk about something that I feel like everyone can agree with. Right now, the Straw Hats need help. At this point, it feels like fact. There's not enough Straw Hats. Luffy has taken an absolute beating and continues to injure himself as we speak. It feels as though the defeat of a Yonko at the hands of the Straw Hats is literally years away. And it also doesn't really feel like they can even escape. They don't even seem strong enough to even be able to escape. Although I have some serious problems with the ideas that the Straw Hats would literally take Sanji and the Road Poneglyph and run away because of other things in the story. Even if they were to do that, that even doesn't feel possible. So we as the theorist community look forward. We look at possible solutions to current problems in the story. And so this leads us to this thought: the Straw Hats may get some unexpected allies. And now the question for me is, who exactly fits? And so let's start off with Jinbei. Jinbei showed up in the last chapter of One Piece, and he did some work and he helped the Straw Hats get out of one of the many impossible situations that they found themselves in over the course of the Whole Cake Island arc. But straight up guys, I love Jinbei. I think Jinbei is going to join the Straw Hat crew, but he by himself and his fishman crew is not enough to make any realistic difference in my opinion. Some other ideas people have had is that Big Mom has a habit of inviting people to her tea party. And depending on who she invited, the Straw Hats may have additional allies. As a concept, I love this idea. But if you try to realistically apply this idea into the context of the actual story, it's incredibly difficult, which makes me extremely doubtful. And so what I mean by this is I don't think Big Mom would invite anyone to the tea party who could realistically oppose her in any way. So if someone was invited, they would have to be relatively weak. And so the best that I can see out of this whole idea is the invitation of someone like Buggy. I've heard this idea before and I like it, where Buggy isn't actually strong enough to counter Big Mom in any way, or really even take on a Sweet Commander, but could potentially add just another ally to Luffy's entire forces to basically increase his strength by numbers. It's less of quality and more of quantity. And so what are some other ideas? Well, the one that I've talked about most on my channel is the possibility that the entire conflict of the Whole Cake Island arc centers not around the Straw Hats versus the Big Mom Pirates, but the Vinsmoke versus the Big Mom Pirates. And if Big Mom herself has some sort of sickness attack where she attacks both her allies and her enemies, then the Big Mom Pirates themselves would need help. And the Straw Hats could potentially provide that help. Essentially, the main conflict of the arc would not be the Big Mom Pirates versus the Straw Hat Pirates. And so with this being the case, then obviously the Straw Hats wouldn't need any allies to take out Big Mom and her crew, thus making this unsolvable situation at least slightly more solvable. But of course, this idea is extremely controversial. So we'll move on to another idea that has creeped up recently, which is the possibility that, given the fact that Big Mom seems to want to take out the Vinsmokes, and that the Vinsmokes need help now, and Luffy usually obliges those who need help by helping them, then this could potentially be setting up the Vinsmoke and Straw Hat alliance. Now, I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but I want to state an undeniable fact that I stole from someone else, which is that no matter which two of these groups that you believe that it's possible that they may in some way help the Straw Hats get out of this situation, both groups would require some serious change in character for Oda to justify them as allies. Essentially, either of these two groups becoming allies would be a very serious plot twist. Now, if you wanted my unfiltered opinion about which group is more likely, which I'm sure you don't want to know that, but I'm going to say it anyway, is I think that right now there's only one thing that substantiates the idea that the Vinsmokes may ally with the Straw Hats, and that is the fact that Big Mom is targeting them and they need help. That is the one thing that supports that idea. because other than that, there is, like, as far as I'm aware, no setup whatsoever to redeem the Vinsmokes. The Vinsmokes' objective is to take out the North Blue and conquer it and control it while taking out the established governments there and killing the people. They're just like completely awful. Revujo says it herself, that her brothers are rotten to the core. And of course, their actions towards Sanji cannot go without some sort of punishment. If Oda literally redeems the Vinsmoke and Sanji's not able to beat their faces in, I swear to Jesus, I will lead the riots in the streets. And so on the flip side, the Big Mom Pirates are much more ambiguous. Their overall goals are not 100% fleshed out, and I do believe that there is some setup for them to flip on us and not be as bad as they seem. So if you had to choose between these two ideas, I personally would choose the Big Mom Pirates. But regardless, as I said earlier, both groups would need some serious character change in order to validate this. And so this leads to the most interesting idea of this post that I have not yet talked about, but I've heard on numerous occasions from several people, so I'm not going to call it anyone in particular. If you commented this, I appreciate it. I probably read it, as well as many other comments as well. But the idea is pretty simple. Luffy's Vivre Card right now is spread out across many different people. And as we saw with the whole situation with Ace, as he was captured and what was going on with him and the world government and his execution, his Vivre Card started to burn up. And this could happen as well to Luffy, and if this was the case, then his allies would be aware that Luffy is in danger. And I think given the amount of damage that Luffy has taken already, there could be some signs on his Vivre Card of the situation and the peril that he's in, which could imply a huge amount of forces being added to Luffy's control in Whole Cake Island if they all go to Whole Cake Island. So of course the most obvious ally in this case would be the Grand Fleet, but I do not believe that the Grand Fleet is strong enough to take out a Yonko as well as the Vinsmoke. Or if the Vinsmoke became an ally, then this would seem a little bit more reasonable. And if Big Mom really wasn't the main force that they needed to fight, then I really don't see the need for a Grand Fleet. So if the Big Mom Pirates and the Vinsmoke remain enemies, then I don't think the Grand Fleet would be enough, but it could also be the case that the other Straw Hats, as well as Trafalgar Law and the rest of the Minks, in some way become aware of this and then actually travel back to Whole Cake Island as well to help out Luffy. I do not think that this is particularly likely, but it would be a very interesting turn of events. My main problem though with this idea is that we've been given like specific evidence as to the duration of the Whole Cake Island arc. Essentially, the Whole Cake Island arc does not have that many chapters left. And so with this being the case, it doesn't seem feasible for there to be an all-out war take place in Whole Cake Island, including the Grand Fleet and everyone else, because that would just take far too long for us to get into the Reverie and Wano in 2017. And so guys, this concludes my list of potential allies or situations in which the Straw Hats can get out of this unsolvable situation, at least with friends. But there is another possibility that I've had in the back of my mind for a long time, and this will undoubtedly be controversial. But if we're left in a situation where the Straw Hats literally do not have enough firepower to take out the Big Mom Pirates as we see them right now, then in what way can they possibly escape? Well, there's always the possibility that Big Mom is not as strong as she seems. Now guys, I know that the Yonko are the 4 strongest pirates in the New World, or basically in the world, right? And they should all be on pretty even footing. But there are several details from the story which potentially may validate Big Mom as a fake. And so again, this probably won't be popular, but I'm going to throw this out here as a potential idea for you guys to discuss and think about. And so let's start off with this. Big Mom certainly is a very powerful pirate, but most of her power seems to come about because of her devil fruit and her extremely overpowered crew. And I believe this is emphasized by the way that Big Mom conducts her business. She seems to prioritize more than anything else the strong connections she can make with other people through having a family and making arranged marriages to include other groups of pirates and other entities into her pirate crew to improve her overall strength. Basically, she has a huge number of subordinates. And this is also illustrated through her devil fruit as well, because she can add additional subordinates because of her devil fruit. She can put souls into inanimate objects, which she can then use to fight for her. And so from this perspective, Big Mom is essentially the Gecko Moria of the Yonko, or the Buggy of the Yonko. She relies heavily on all of her subordinates. And she couples this with relying heavily as well on her image and or perception of what people think about her. Essentially, people are afraid of her because of her Yonko status and her extremely powerful crew. And I believe that there are clues within the story which also add to the general idea that Big Mom hypes herself up in order to create additional fear of her overall power. And I believe this works perfectly with their devil fruit, because as I talked about in a theory nearly 6 months ago, and actually Marco the Theorist, brought up this again recently, which is that Big Mom's devil fruit seems to work in a way that if her prey is afraid of her, then they are more susceptible of being affected by her soul-stealing abilities. And so it's very clear that the majority of people are actually afraid of her and therefore will be affected by her devil fruit abilities. But if somebody was not afraid of her and was not affected by her soul-stealing abilities, then that may significantly reduce her overall strength. Enter Luffy, our fearless heroine. And so before I move on, many people may argue, well, this might be the case, Joy Boy, but she's still a Yonko and she's fought with other Yonko in the past and proved her rank. And to this point, I do want to say that it's been revealed by the world government that the Yonko do not fight each other very often, if at all. When Shanks went to go meet Whitebeard, the world government was just absolutely terrified as to what the potential consequences were of this meeting for the world. Would the world actually be destroyed? Which I think emphasizes the fact that the Yonko do not fight. And if this is the case, then Big Mom may be, for the most part, untested against any competition that could really get through her main strength, which would be her pirate crew. And I do think that it's very interesting that Big Mom has, at least it appears to be, a habit of luring strong rookies to her territory when they just enter the New World and crushing their dreams. And so if there was any really strong pirates who had really strong wills, who actually at any point in time had any hope of beating Big Mom, they would have first been defeated by Big Mom, furthering her power over them by instilling some sort of fear within them of her powers. Thus, even if they escape, Big Mom would then have some sort of advantage over them later. Or if they don't escape and she doesn't kill them, they may join her pirate crew, thus improving her overall strength. So long story short, the secret to defeating Big Mom may be to get past all of her subordinates. And so given the current context of the whole Cake Island arc, how exactly could this be possible? It's very clear that if the Strats do not get some sort of major ally, that they have no hope of doing this. But I do believe that there is another way, and this will go back to Big Mom's sickness. Big Mom has a sickness in which she attacks both allies and enemies. If Big Mom has a rage attack in Whole Cake Island, she may actually potentially defeat her layer of protection, leaving only her and the Straw Hats and the Vinsmoke left. And as I said earlier, I don't think that Luffy would be affected by her devil fruit. At least, I don't think that she could steal Luffy's lifespan. And so if Luffy managed to eat some sort of Senzu bean or in some way regain some sort of strength, and if Big Mom is indeed a fake, then this could potentially set up Sanji versus the Vinsmoke, where Sanji is actually stronger than everyone in the Vinsmoke family. And then Luffy versus Big Mom, where Luffy could actually potentially beat her. Now, I'm not saying that I believe this idea, guys, but I do think that it is definitely a very interesting train of thought, and at the very least may validate her defeat later on in the story. But anyway, guys, that's all I got for you for this particular post. If you want me to do a specific theory, including all the evidence for why Big Mom may be a fake, then let me know in the comment section. I basically skimmed over most of the evidence and gave you my conclusion based on many of my theories that may be hard for some of you to follow, and if this was the case, then let me know. But if you do get why I might think that she may indeed not be as strong as she seems, then let me know what you think about this idea. Let me know if you agree or disagree and why. Just share your thoughts. And yeah, guys, like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video, subscribe if you want to be notified for my future videos, and as always, guys, have a wonderful day.